Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Environmentally Sensitive Timber Bridge Design and Construction. My name is Julie Ledbetter. I am the Sales and Marketing Coordinator at York Bridge Concepts. We are a full-service design build firm specializing in vehicular and pedestrian bridges. We focus on longevity, style, and craftsmanship. Our 7,000 plus bridges can be seen in almost all 50 states, as well as the Caribbean islands, Central America, and Europe. We create innovative crossing solutions for any environment. Timber bridges are our passion, and we are very good at it. So before we get started, I want to point out the Zoom features that we'll be utilizing throughout the webinar to enhance your interactive experience. We'll be posting links to articles, projects, and upcoming webinars in the chat. There's also a poll question that we'd like to get your feedback on if you haven't done so already. It's already up. So in just a few minutes, we're going to look at the results. And you may type a question in the Q&A, and we'll answer that at the end of the presentation. Or if you'd like to participate in the discussion at the end of the webinar, you are welcome to raise your hand, and I will unmute your mic so you can participate. But don't worry, because there is no video. So now let's get to the poll question. Let's see how that looks. Let's see. I'm not seeing that poll. Oh, here we go. All right, we got it here. So the question was, what conditions have influenced you the most when choosing an environmentally sensitive crossing solution? And of course, at 42% permitting agency requirements, I think we can all agree that that tends to be our main issue. And it looks like, yeah, 33% a concept, a vision and purpose. That's an interesting result. And yep, limited access, challenges on the site. That's close. Yeah, it looks like these are all great answers. Like I said, if you had some other reason, we'll look at it in the chat a little bit later during our Q&A. I'd like to see what those answers look like. So I want to introduce you to Titus Edwards. He's going to be presenting with me today. How you doing today, Titus? We'll get him up here in just a minute. He's our lead senior bridge consultant at York Bridge Concepts. He's 20-year timber bridge expert. He has completed over 300 projects. However, he has worked with so many clients and probably consulted on over probably thousands of them. Is that right, Titus?
That's correct. Hi, Julie. Good to be with you today.
Good to hear from you. I'm so glad you've joined me today and talking about environmentally sensitive timber bridge design and construction.
Should be exciting.
Yeah, it should be. We have about 4 considerations today for our webinar. Of course, we always think about material. We think about timber itself as the main topic of conversation when it comes to being environmentally friendly. But in actuality, it starts with a good design, right? And part of that good design is all about the crossing types. Where are you setting the pile bents? Where are you putting piling in the ground? What are you doing to the ground underneath you? And of course, we will talk about material selection. Also, your construction methods and your site cleanup. It's not always about just the finished structure in the ground. It's about how you logistically get it there and how you take care of the environment during construction. And of course, protection and longevity of the finished structure. We take very good care of putting a structure into the ground that's going to last a very long time, because we do not want you to have to tear something out in a few years and rebuild it. Bad for the environment.
Julie, these are 4 great points, and they will serve as an outline for our presentation today. And we're going to discuss how York Bridge is involved in all aspects of this from an environmentally friendly solution with our timber bridges.
Yeah, that's a great point, Titus. And of course, it all starts with choosing a span. And choosing a span is going to be, of course, number one, based on cost. You did a webinar already on spanning solutions, so that tends to be the number one concern. But then you have those special projects where a span needs to be considered based on the environmental concerns of the environment. Is that right?
Exactly right, Julie. When you're talking about environmentally friendly solution for bridges, you start with a design of the bridge to fit the crossing. Now, since we built, I don't know, 8,000 bridges all over the country, we've come across all different types of scenarios, and these different type crossings require different type of span solutions. And what you're seeing are the three most basic ones that we utilize. On the left is our repetitive span design, then multiple span, then free span. And we want to talk just a little bit about each one of them and how they fit into this environmental aspect.
Yeah, so the first project we're looking at, a kind of our example project of our repetitive span design, is Bullhead Island, which is on the Cape Fear River in North Carolina. And this was 10,000 acres are dedicated to untouched beach and marshlands and forests. So of course, very environmentally sensitive area. Of course, you can see on the right the wetlands that it was crossing. So very important to get the right spanning design for this project.
Bullhead Island is a great project, Julie, and you can see on the right from the aerial that there is a wetland, a marsh area within the island. And this is a small private island about 2 miles off the coast of North Carolina, just south of Wilmington. And it's a resort tourist residential type of place. So people take a ferry across and you can see the marina where they come into. And once they're there at the marina, they don't really have cars out there, but they have a tram that'll take you to various spots around the island. And you can also rent golf carts. But they wanted a little bit better connectivity, and therefore they called us to build them a bridge over their wetland area. Now you can see the bridge on the left, and what a beautiful bridge indeed that it is. And you can see underneath the timber piling supports. This bridge is 22 feet wide, and it's a 5-ton bridge to accommodate the tram and the golf carts with a pedestrian section that people can walk on. But you can see every 10 feet, there were piling vents installed to be able to support the bridge. Now, we're going to show you coming up in a moment how we built this from the deck, another aspect of our friendly, environmentally aspect to bridges. But this design is a very friendly, environmentally friendly design.
What you're saying, Titus? So what you're saying, Titus, is that in the repetitive span design to be environmentally friendly, it accommodates our deck level construction, which we'll explain in a little while, a little more about that. But it starts with that repetitive span design and those 10-foot sections to accommodate the equipment on top of the bridge. That way they don't have to go into the wetlands at all.
Exactly right. And we'll show how this bridge was built from that standpoint. So the impact to the wetland and marsh is minimal. It's only the small diameter piling being driven into the ground that impacted that crossing. By the way, you see the structure there on the left in the picture on the left, Julie?
Yeah.
That is the oldest lighthouse in North Carolina. They called it Old Baldy. Wow. And it was actually commissioned by one of our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson.
And it's kind of a signature of Bullhead Island.
And how special it is that in the picture you can actually see the birds flying through the air.
Yes, indeed. Great picture.
Yes. Our second spanning design consideration when it comes to being environmentally friendly is our multiple span design. And our feature project here is Coastal Club. This is in Lewis, Delaware. And it's the subdivision. It surrounds a 42-acre nature preserve. It's near the Atlantic Ocean, and it had 2 large areas of land that could be developed, but it was split by that 200-foot sensitive area. So there are lots of considerations here. Actually, we'll talk about this one a little bit later when it comes to limited access challenges in the construction. But this one's very special as well with the multiple span design. I'm looking at the picture on the left there, Titus. It looks like there's a longer span in addition to the repetitive spans.
Well, you're right, Julie. In the middle there is a water channel, and this is a wetland area. The bridge is 190 feet long, and it's a 2-lane vehicular rated bridge. And you can see to the left and barely back to the right in that picture, there are those repetitive short spans with the piling, and those were allowed in this scenario, but we needed to span over the main water channel. No piling, no supports were allowed in that water channel. And so we came up with a 35-foot long free span. Now, we call that, Julie, a multiple span design bridge because you're using spans of different lengths within the bridge crossing. As a matter of fact, I think we have a drawing that may show this from a side profile standpoint. There you see the waters, the main water channel there to the left, the red lines. You see the pile supported approaches coming and going on both sides. This is a great design, often used for many reasons, but it's very environmentally friendly to avoid any supports in the main water channel, and yet enables us to build a longer bridge.
Yeah, so I mean, the bottom line is if you are working on certain crossing challenges and you know that you've got to meet permitting, or you have a special concept or design, or you really want to uphold certain principles in your projects, the custom design and on-site build that York Bridge can provide, we can accommodate those needs. And I think Coastal Club is a great example of that. We'll hear more about Coastal Club a little bit later, but let's move on to a free span design. I think most of you are familiar with a free span design. Usually our clients, when they come to us, they say, I just need to span over this. So they're thinking one continuous span. This is Adagio on the Green. This is in Mission Viejo, California, a lovely little pedestrian bridge that crosses over the Oso River. I'm sorry, excuse me, the Oso Creek. The issues with the Oso Creek with the local permitting agencies is they experienced a lot of pollution through the creek, and they were cleaning up the creek. So they made their local jurisdictions, they made it more difficult to add. You couldn't add piling at all into the creek. So that free span design is what they chose to connect the two sections of their apartment complex.
You can see that in the picture on the right, Julie, that this apartment complex has two parts, and it's split by this Oso Creek. And as you just mentioned, there was a lot of environmental concerns to this creek. And the simplest design, the easiest way to solve that, you just span over it. One single free span. And that's the third design element. So you have repetitive span, multiple spans, free spans. And with glue laminated beams, like you see there on the left, we can span up to about 100 feet. This is a 77-foot long pedestrian bridge, and it connected these two parts of the apartment complex. So a free span design is very simple and very easy. You're just spanning over any of the environmentally sensitive areas.
Mm-hmm. And side note on construction in California, we'll get to materials a little bit later, but just note that this is Douglas fir. We typically use southern yellow pine. I'm thinking, Titus, it's kind of east of the Mississippi, but anything out west, we tend to go with Douglas fir. We'll talk about that a little bit later, the materials, but good note on the California build. Yeah, here's the drawing. I think we wanted to look and see, look, there's a 100-year flood elevation. We can see that the free span completely clears that flood elevation, and the Oso Creek flows underneath it.
Very good. It's a beautiful pedestrian bridge. They love it out there, and it fits so well into that environment.
Yeah, so I think, like I said at the very beginning, when we talk about being environmentally friendly, Timber Bridge Company, people naturally assume that we're just talking about the materials. Well, we are going to talk about the materials. So, and the points we want to make about it is that, yes, it's naturally and environmentally green material. It grows naturally, it's durable, it's sustainable, it's renewable. And if you have a special project where you need special FSC certified or LEED certification on your material, we can source that. That is an option. Like I said, that's an advantage to going with a custom design and build on site company.
You know, timber is very environmentally friendly. It is a green material. It is natural. It is organic. And most of the lumber that we're using is coming from tree farms that are being produced for the timber industry. And so it works out very, very well. It's a renewable, sustainable resource, much more environmentally friendly, much lower carbon footprint than in the production of concrete and steel today. So timber works very, very well. It's a great material to build bridges out of.
Yeah, if you just want to look and see the impact of concrete and steel, Google those two terms and put the word environment next to it and see what kind of articles you come up with. They're not good.
Whole different animal, isn't it?
Whole different animal. And we'd love to see a lot more timber wood construction in the future. It's a very big trend. Even outside of bridges, you see a lot more information about mass timber and the use of building buildings even. So yeah, so the main, I guess the main material we like to use is southern yellow pine. This is a picture of southern yellow pine going into the treatment.
Yes, and if you take wood and you put it outdoors, it's only going to last for a limited amount of time. And so you pressure treat lumber, and that's what you're seeing here. They're putting the raw lumber into these vacuum tubes, and they put preservatives into the wood. And the whole idea is that you're trying to prevent the wood from rotting outdoors, and you're trying to prevent the bugs and the termites from eating it. So pressure treatment is very important, and all of the lumber that we utilize is pressure treated lumber, except in a few cases, which we'll share with you in just a moment.
Yeah, this is a Scenic Point Park in Rowlett, Texas. Do you say Rowlett, Titus, or you say Rowlett?
The second.
Well, I'm from the South. We would say Rowlett, Texas.
I like that. Let's go with that.
And this is a lovely boardwalk that we completed with them, but it is right next to the local water reservoir. So do you want to put CCA treated timber piling in the ground next to a water reservoir?
This is a great project, Scenic Point Park. What you cannot see back here at the bottom of the page, this bridge actually connects to Highway 66. And Highway 66 is elevating, becomes a concrete bridge, and goes over Lake Ray Hubbard. Now, this is in the Dallas, Texas area, and our boardwalk connects to the highway, and then we wind down into a new park called Scenic Point Park. This was to provide pedestrian access. But now, what Julie was trying to mention here, you see the picture, the inset picture on the right? You can see all the piling bents. This is a repetitive span design bridge, but the waters from Lake Ray Hubbard are used for drinking water for the city of Dallas. So therefore, they had some permitting restrictions. No pressure treated lumber were allowed within a certain elevation. So we had to use all natural hardwood piling instead of our normal southern yellow pine pressure treated lumber. And these natural hardwood pilings will endure, they'll last, they have no chemicals, no pressure treatment involved, and they work out very, very well. So here again was another way that York Bridge was able to satisfy environmental concerns and build the bridge from an environmentally environmentally friendly standpoint using environmentally friendly materials.
And of course, was built from the deck level.
Yes, indeed. We're going to see that more in a moment.
And I think the next slide, we're coming up on it. So segueing
Ta-da!
into deck level construction. So, and of course, what we've already mentioned in the design process, because these things go hand in hand, you can't talk about one without the other. So what you see on the left is actually Ballhead Island, which we just talked about. And you can see it's a very good picture of how the equipment stays off of the wetlands. And we use a vibratory hammer to insert the piling into the ground.
You know, this is something very unique in the construction industry. And if you're following along our outline, we've talked, number one, about the design of the bridge. Number two, we now talked about the materials. Now we're on number three. We're talking about the construction methods that we utilize. York Bridge is one of the pioneers in the deck level construction methodology. Some people in the other industries refer to this as top down. This is the Bullhead Island Bridge, repetitive span. We're able to reach out 10 feet, drive the piling with a vibratory hammer, and you can see it's attached to the end of a backhoe. Sometimes we'll use a small excavator, but look where the equipment is sitting. It's sitting, Julie, on the deck of the bridge.
Yeah.
The platform of the bridge becomes the platform for the equipment. We're not running equipment down there through the marsh, through the wetland, destroying it or changing it forever. We're working off the deck. The only impact is the minimal impact of the piling that is being driven in. And we're able to build most of our bridges with this deck level construction method. And it's in a very, very environmentally friendly method of construction.
Yeah, and on the right side, you can see that's our Edison Chastain project. We're actually going to show you guys a time lapse in just a minute. But this interesting image here shows the pile driving, shows the silt fencing up that is protecting the crossing. So no equipment, nothing went into that protected area where the silt fencing was located. But there's another interesting point about this image, and that is, looks like they are splicing, Titus.
That's exactly what they're doing. Sometimes when you have a soft soil situation, you have to drive piling very, very deep. And so in that scenario, we're able to splice our piling together. It's an engineered splice, and continue driving them. And we've driven piling over 100 feet deep using that methodology. Again, working with our excavator, with that compactor hammer. And there's a stream that's being delineated by that silt fencing, and that's the protected area. And we're going to show you in just a moment, not only the materials, the design, but also the construction method, and very environmentally friendly. As a matter of fact, here it is.
And here is Edison Chastain in motion.
Edison Chastain is an office building that's built in Marietta, Georgia. You can see it there on the right. And this is the entrance road coming up to the office building. We built a 2-lane vehicular bridge. It's 130 feet long, and it is a multiple span design. It has 3 15-foot approach spans. You see them there on the left. On each side, there's some more on the right. But in the middle, there's a 40-foot long free span. And now you see them setting the glulam beams for that 40-foot free span.
And I noticed, Titus, I did notice that nothing happened in the crossing. Everything went over the crossing with no problem.
Ta-da! Environmentally friendly construction method. We built from one side, working from the deck, went around, built from the other side, and then set those 40-foot glulam free span, and we just span rod over the stream in the environmentally sensitive area. Deck level construction, design, the right materials, all of it went into play in this one bridge. And then look what you finish with.
Beautiful.
What a gorgeous bridge, matches the aesthetics of the building. And we were honored to work with the developer on this project. And what a beautiful legacy design timber bridge, built in a very environmentally friendly way.
Yep. And as we get to the end of the presentation, we're going to talk more about protecting the structure. You can see here that we do have our acrylic polymer coating. And you can see that the timber piles themselves are coated, and that is to extend the life of the piling and the substructure so that that bridge will be in the ground for a very long time.
And provides an enhanced aesthetic as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So site cleanup, when we are on site, we do consider the environment. And we know that if you've ever been to a construction site, especially around here in the Wesley Chapel, Tampa Bay area, there's tons of construction everywhere. And sometimes from the road, I can drive and see that there's sometimes trash everywhere. There's sometimes shavings and all types of scrap materials laying around. Well, at York Bridge, site cleanup is of utmost importance to us. And you can see in these initial images, first of all, we have CCA treated wood shavings that, you don't want those going all over your construction site, do you, Titus?
No, and you can see the huge volume of tarps that we're using under and around the bridge to help protect the environment and to keep some of the sawdust and cuttings from the bridge. Remember, the bridge is being built piece by piece right on site. So you've got people cutting and drilling and sanding. And so you want to catch all of that so that it does not get into the environment. But Julie, I love the picture on the right. Do you know what that is?
Well, it looks like they're drilling, and it looks like the shavings are going into, what is that? Is that a net?
They're installing the post for the handrail, and he's reaching over there and he's drilling the hole. He's going to be able to bolt through that in just a moment. But this is a fish net, and they put a plastic garbage bag in it, and they're catching the sawdust from the drilling.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. And considering all of the shavings that go everywhere, the fact that we're able to catch them and dispose of them properly, and keeping that environment as clean as possible is quite amazing.
It just shows the extents that York Bridge goes to. I don't know, there's other companies that do this type of thing, certainly not to the level that we do it. And this is why York Bridge is so special and so unique in so many ways. And this is just a couple of small things that we do to protect the environment, but that makes the York Bridge so special all the way along.
Mm-hmm. And occasionally when we do have to do augering, and that's drilling, in order to set the pile, sometimes the ground is too hard to use the vibratory hammer straight in, so you have to drill. Even then, on the picture on the left, you can see that as we drill and when we pull the augering tool out, that even the extra soil underneath, we do not allow it to flow down into the environment. It could cause a muddy mess. If it's going into a creek or some flowing water, it could obstruct the flow of water.
Yes, when we do have to drill because of hard soil situations, we're also conscious of the spoils that are coming from that augering methodology. And you see here how we're actually capturing those into one of these large commercial garbage bags. And then Julie on the left, this is just great. They're installing stringers on a vehicular bridge, and you can see the guy on the left is drilling the holes, and then there on the right front, they're inserting pins. So the stringers are pinned down into the timber caps sitting below them. But the other guy that you see the feet, he's vacuuming up the sawdust. By the way, Julie, did you ever do any vacuuming at your house?
Occasionally, on occasion.
I thought your husband did all of that.
No, he helps.
Again, what a special and unique thing, because we don't want this sawdust and these cuttings to just go all into the environment. Again, many methods that we're utilizing to protect the environment and the design, the materials, the construction methodology, and some of the special things we do in building bridges.
Yeah, and then also the other consideration when we're on site, of course, it's standard to put up the silt fencing, but we just want to remind our audience that with timber bridge crossing, it is required. So we do put up the silt fencing, and we also use the turbidity floats when we do a water build.
Turbidity curtains on the left there. catch any of the debris and spoils that may get into the water, and then they can be cleaned up. And then, of course, silt fencing on the right from a ground standpoint. But in both scenarios, again, the environment is being protected in a permitting friendly way as well.
So back to Coastal Club. So we had a special situation at Coastal Club. Obviously, we talked about the multiple span. That is what we were spanning, that nice little section there. You can see the lovely pond underneath the wetlands there. They went untouched. We did not put any materials into that area. But what the situation was is that we were unable to deliver materials to the other side of the bridge in order to start the repetitive span deck level construction. So what did our crew do, Titus?
Well, this is really special and unique, and it just goes to show again the tremendous talent. When you've got a company that has built so many bridges like we have experts in the field that know exactly how to accomplish any type of construction, no matter what the limitations may be. You know, Julie, I've had clients that call me and say, well, I got to get a helicopter and get materials in there because there's no access. Well, here's a perfect example of the creativity of York Bridge. And if we can replay this little video again, I want you to see what we're doing here. Now, if you remember this Coastal Club Bridge, it's a multiple span. So there's a stream in there, and you've got a 35-foot free span. Well, we can't reach and build it all from the deck from one direction, but the access to the other side was very, very limited. So what do? We got two excavators, one on each side, and they have built this temporary crossing. You can see the piling. These are big 65-foot long piling, and they're taking the lumber and they're pulling it, sliding it across. You know, Julie, I have read some things about the Egyptians building the pyramids, and they may have used some of similar type of technology in sliding some of those big stones. But again, well, you see the creativity that we're able to utilize.
Sure. When you don't have trucks and you don't have the technology of today, I'm sure you had to get really creative back then.
Yes, indeed. And we were able to complete this entire bridge in a very environmentally friendly way without destroying or messing up or impacting that wetland or stream.
Yep. So let's transition into a project review. We have a special project to show you. It is a single lane vehicular driveway bridge in Lake Tahoe, California. A situation where two neighbors were sharing access to their properties, and neighbor A decided that they wanted their own access. They no longer wanted to share with neighbor B. So what did they do? They called the best timber bridge company. I would say in the world, but I'm pretty biased.
Well, you should be.
To cross Julie, over their stream.
Julie, when you're talking California, you're talking about very, very sensitive environmental considerations. And when you're talking South Lake Tahoe, that's where this is. This is crossing the Angora Creek in South Lake Tahoe. When you're talking Tahoe, then you can kick it up another 10 notches. Environmental concerns all over the board. And yet you can see we completed a 104-foot long vehicular bridge. Now, this is a vehicular bridge that goes to a private residence, as Julie pointed out, but there were a lot of considerations here. This is a side profile of our drawing, and I want you to notice two things. Number one, on the left, this is all wetland protected area, no impacts allowed. On the right, you see a stream and wetland as well. And so the bridge is 104 foot long, but the design is two spans, a 58-foot span and a 46-foot span. You see in the middle, there's a piling bin to support the spans. And this is an area that we were allowed to put in piling supports, but we stayed out of the area on the left and stayed out of the creek on the right. These were all hardwood, non-pressure treated piling that were used there in the middle. So there was a lot of things going on here. The design had to be right. The materials had to be right. And then when we ended up, it ended up to be a beautiful bridge. Here you can see it's actually setting the glue laminated beams, Julie.
Yeah. And I just want to point out, because I just love the way Douglas fir looks untreated. We can put protective coatings on Douglas fir, but Douglas fir glulam beams are just, to me, just beautiful, untouched. They're beautiful. It's a great picture. It's a great testament to what we do, that multiple long span design, and how we carefully attach each stringer together, and staying out of that crossing. That one pile bent in, and we were mobilized to just one area in order to complete the bridge. So there was limited mobility around the site.
You see there on the left, Julie, you can see that there's a crane involved setting these beams. And of course, it's sitting way back in an area that it can drive into. You see our timber abutment, and then the riprap, the erosion control protection. Down there toward the bottom, you see looks like hay bale type of things. And there's your sediment control. That's the protected area that we're staying out of. The picture on the right in the very back of the bridge, you can see some of the silt fencing back there. So you see, again, all of these environmental protection measures are being used. And then we have a completed bridge.
And I noticed something interesting about the design of this bridge, Titus.
And what was that?
Well, I mean, it looks like normally when we have a curb, there's usually runoff to where when it rains, the water is able to run off the sides of the bridge. But here it looks like there's a continuous curb.
Ah, very good. Very good that you picked up on that. Normally, you see the curbing down there, the left and the right side of the bridge on this vehicular bridge. You normally have curb blocks that are 18 inches long, and they sit the curbing up, and that means the water can run off the side of the bridge. That's normal in the design of a bridge with curbing. In this case, the permitting did not allow for water runoff from the edges of the bridge. So we remove the blocks, drop the curbing down on the deck. So now you have a channel, and you can see the camber, the arch of the bridge, so that the water runs back off the ends of the bridge, and you can see the drain system there, Julie, that then captures that water runoff.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a very unique design. And it turned out to be a very beautiful bridge indeed.
Oh, it is. What a gorgeous bridge, protected, built environmentally friendly with not only the design, the construction methods, the materials, everything. What a perfect example, case study of what we've been talking about today.
And in conclusion, we've talked about it all. I've hinted to it all along that the final structure should be protected. So in addition to the CCA treatment of the timbers, then we can add the acrylic polymer coatings to the timber, any of the substructure that's exposed, and also to the exposed stringers, and to the railing as well, because most important is that we keep your bridge in service for a very long time. We don't want to come. Go ahead.
All of these finishes that we use are no or low VOC, all EPA approved. And as Julie is talking about, not only does it provide for lower overall maintenance, it does increase the lifespan of these bridges so that you can get a 75-year design life out of our vehicular bridges. And of course, you can see the enhanced aesthetics that go with it. So when you put all of these together, we've talked about environmentally friendly method of building bridges, materials, designs, all the special things that we do. And York Bridge is very much concerned about the environment, and we can certainly meet your needs along that line and build you a great legacy design timber bridge.
Mm-hmm. And with that being said, speaking of protecting the structure, we have a webinar coming up on October 20th, and it's called How to Maximize the Lifespan of Your Timber Bridge. Okay, so we're going to be talking a lot more about the coatings. We're going to be talking a lot more about maintenance and your bridge inspections, and things we can do to help you after your bridge, your York Timber Bridge, is put in place. So that will be October 20th at 2 p.m. We'll put a link in the chat so you can go ahead and join. It will also be in your post-webinar email. Titus, I just wanted to point out to our audience one more time, I've probably said it through the entire webinar, but one of the advantages of being a full design, build, timber, bridge building company is that we have the flexibility and adaptability to tailor all the aspects of your project to the special environmental needs of our clients.
Yes, indeed. And we'd be happy to work with you on any projects that you may have and come up with some good solutions for you from an environmental standpoint.
Yep, a couple of things. I've already mentioned our next webinar. You can go to ybc.com/webinars and listen to any of the previous webinar recordings from this series. They are available. Also, if you have any questions or you need a certificate of completion, you can email me at jledbetter@ybc.com. Side note, our presentations are not accredited. However, we will still provide you with a certificate upon request. So with that being said, I would like to go into the chat and see if there are any questions. Let's see. I see a couple of questions here. Let me get to, I think, Mohammed. Mohammed says, let's see, what kind of proofing material of the wood column? Titus, can you answer that? Let's see, we have wooden bridge construction using Swedish wood, and also the living bridge of Cherrapunji using the root of the ficus elastic P. Let's see. Okay, Rachel already answered that. So looks like, oh, yes. Let me just go ahead and read that out to the group in case anybody else is looking at the chat. So it does say yes. And do we do in cases? Rachel answered this. We do in select cases utilize a super putty to prepare natural wood surface checking or similar for our acrylic polymer coatings. In addition, we will utilize silicone to fill countersinking hardware to prevent risk associated with sitting water. So we answered that question. Anyone else have any questions? I want to make sure I'm getting them all. So anyone raising their hand? I want to make sure I'm getting that as well. Okay, well, if I've answered everyone's questions,
looks like
I want to thank.
Just came in there, Julie.
Okay, let's see. I say, yeah, okay, so Dwayne is saying, does York evaluate Scour during engineering? I believe I saw some riprap on one slide.
We always recommend riprap, Dwayne. We do not actually install it. Normally, that's something that the civil engineers work with, but we always recommend that the banks be armored and the abutments be protected with riprap. But we don't actually do the scour analysis. But that's normally coming from the civil engineers that we work with on the bridge.
Yeah, good question, Dwayne. Any other questions? Give you a couple more seconds. And if there are no more questions, I just want to remind you, yes, in your post-webinar email, which will come out tomorrow, you will get a recording of the webinar. You'll also get an invitation to the next webinar. And like I said, you can always email me and ask for a certificate of completion. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to see you next time. Bye now.